Last night was a game that I was very much looking forward to. It's a game that we all discussed on Friday's show between the Eagles and the Lions. We know the headlines going on with A.J. Brown and all the Eagles dysfunction going on within the organization. Well, last night, my main takeaway was more the lines on how bad the Lions were instead of how good the Eagles were, or if they fixed their offensive issues. Because I talked about on Friday how I was really looking forward to how Philly was going to respond amongst the mist of all of the A.J. Brown discourse. Because last week, coming off a bye, and granted, you were in the freezing cold, you're in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in Lambeau Field, and you didn't put up a great offensive performance. You scored 10 points. But at home, on Sunday Night Football, against a NFC contender who should be in the mix once the playoffs come around, and offensively again yesterday, you look absolutely abysmal. We'll get to Philly, but first let's talk about the Lions a little bit. I was not impressed by the Lions yesterday. Again, and this is harping on me. This is my diagnosis when it comes to the Lions. I've not been high on this team since the very first game this year. Granted, Jayden, why are you making such a big deal about a game in the beginning of the season? Week 1, the Lions did not look good against the Packers. The offense didn't look that good. The offensive line play did not look that good. And my problem is, never really been sold on Jared Goff that much. And you're losing all the coordinators and you got all the offensive line issues, and that showed on last night's game. The offensive line was getting absolutely beat like a Cherokee drum. Jalen Phillips, he was all in the backfield. And Jared Goff, the stigma with Jared Goff is, man, you know, when he's not playing in a dome and he's playing in the cold, the guy can't play. And last night, it seems like that stigma surrounded Jared Goff is absolutely true. Jared Goff was absolutely awful. He was 14 for 37, 255 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And do not let these stats fool you. Jahmyr Gibbs, off of running back screens, had 107 yards receiving. So if you take that away, Jared Goff was absolutely atrocious throwing the football. And they were 0 for 5 on third down. Sorry, they were 0 for 5 on fourth down. And a lot of people is going to point this to Dan Campbell and the play calling, because we know and we discussed Friday that Dan Campbell did take over the play calling for the remainder of the season. And Jay Glazer and everyone reported that yesterday during the Fox Sunday pre-show. But I don't think the play calling necessarily was the problem yesterday for the Lions. It was really execution. 9 times out of 10 on the fourth down drive, Jahmyr Gibbs got stuffed. And then the other 4 pass plays they called on fourth down, either Jared Goff was rushed and was hurried off his spot, or there was just an inaccurate pass. The execution yesterday for the Lions was absolutely abysmal. I think the Lions, period, from Dan Campbell and his fourth down decision-making, I think he could have got some points because this was a game freezing cold. I mean, the wind was absolutely atrocious. You need points. And I feel like Dan Campbell was sticking to his guns with the whole, I'm going to go for it because I want to go for it. Because this is the type of identity I have set for my team. And I'm going to live and die by that identity. Sometimes you kind of getting in your own way. Because in this game, you lose by 7 points. What, I think 4 times they went on fourth down, they could have kicked field goals, maybe even 3. I think twice they went for it in the red zone, if I remember correctly. You could have gave yourself a better shot to win the game. And I know a lot of people are going to point to, you know, the Lions getting screwed on the final pass interference call there against A.J. Brown, against Rock Ya-Sin on A.J. Brown. Yes, the call was absolutely garbage. I did not agree with the call whatsoever. Granted, this is coming from somebody who officiates football, so it's kind of hard for me to be critical of officials, but I really got to say, did not like that call in that scenario. But the Lions deserved to lose this game. They didn't play well. Now, defensively, shout out to the defensive coordinator. I don't know his name from the top of my head, but he did a phenomenal job last night. The front line did not let Saquon run the ball. And it's just offensively, if this is the way the Lions are going to play, and the way the division is setting up for the Lions, and the way the playoff picture is looking, you're going to have to go on the road. And if you play like this on the road, it's not going to be a good day. because Jared Goff kind of plays like a pumpkin when he's in these type of elements. And you're in a division where, and we're fixing to discuss Philly. I thought I'd make this one point. You're going to have the possibility going on the road in Philly in the playoffs. And last year, the Rams had to go there and it was snowing. So Jared Goff, in the offense, I know we can point to Dan Campbell stuff. It's just, the lines were just bad yesterday. And their schedule does not get easier. So I was not happy at all. I picked somewhat the Lions to win this game because I was like, okay, the Lions offensively, they've not, in the games they've lost, it's been relatively close. If they just execute. And I think this is the problem with the Lions. They are not executing. And the thing again with Jared Goff, and this is something that I watched during the game. If you get Jared Goff, if you rattle him, and this is another stigma on Jared Goff, which I've actually pointed out many times. If you get Jared Goff off his spot, because if Jared Goff is able to pick you apart, stand that back in the pocket, he'll pick you apart. But if you can rush him and get pressure, Jared Goff's just not good. And it showed yesterday. But moving on to Philly. I got to give credit where credit is due. This season is kind of flip-flopped, and John Middlecoff described it last night in his show. The season's kind of went backwards. When you really think about the first couple of games that Philly played, it kind of felt like the defense was going to be the worst part of the team, and then the offense, which it should be the best part of the team, but the offense was going to be the best part of the team because you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, relatively decent O-line, Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts is coming off a Super Bowl MVP. But it feels like this season, it's kind of the opposite. The defense is going to be the main catalyst going into the playoffs. The Eagles are going to make the playoffs. They should. They are going to be in a conversation for getting the number one pick. Sorry, not the number one pick, but the number one seed, excuse me. It's just because of the defense and Vic Fangio and what he's been able to do, the addition of Jalen Phillips. Got to give credit to Howie Roseman. He just continues to make his team better. And that Jalen Phillips addition is huge. You felt it last night. They were able to get to Jared Goff at will. They were making them uncomfortable. Jalen Carter was getting a pass rush. You know, all these pass breakups, batted balls at the line of scrimmage. Like the Eagles, they were pouncing yesterday. Amon-Ra St. Brown, didn't hear his name much. Jahmyr Gibbs, he had a couple of catches here or there. The only person who really made noise for the Lions offensively was J-Mo here and there, but mainly Jahmyr Gibbs in the run game. And you held Jahmyr Gibbs to just 39 yards rushing. So the defense was absolutely phenomenal yesterday. And I got to give credit to where credit is due, but again, the main headline for this team, what is going on with the offense? And I discuss this every time I watch these games with Dad. And, you know, me and my dad, we sit and watch these games. And I tell him when I watch Philly, I'm like, Dad, every time I watch A.J. Brown, he's either catching a slant, a fade, or curl route. At one point in the game where it feels like Philly is trying to force feed A.J. Brown, that one throw that Jalen Hurts made, I think it was in the fourth quarter, and he just chucked it up. I just told Dad, I said, yep, that's A.J. Brown's pass. And he threw it 5 yards ahead of A.J. Brown. I mean, it's just, this Philadelphia offense is nowhere near as good as it was last year. They cannot run the football with Saquon. Yesterday, like, you look, Saquon gets the ball. Like, the front, the guard center guard for Philly is just getting pushed in the backfield by a defensive tackle core who, yeah, they got Lee McNeil back, but the defensive tackle room is kind of not the Lions' strong suit. It was always the edge rushers and the linebackers and the defensive backfield. It's like the defensive tackles was like their weak spot on their defense, and yet they were able to just beat the Phillies' offensive line at the line of scrimmage yesterday. Now, they were in the backfield by the time Saquon's just sitting here juking, trying to make plays, but he can't do anything. And the disconnect between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts continues. Smitty didn't even get no looks yesterday. Smitty caught one pass, but he was targeted 5 times. A.J. Brown was targeted 11 times. He caught 7 balls for 49 yards. But when I tell you this offense is just so bad, it's bad in situations. They couldn't even run the tush push yesterday. They got stuffed on 4th down on the tush push. That was absolutely shocking to me. Philly, I know they're winning. They are winning. The stigma and the main consensus around everybody in media, former players who are in media now, they always say, a win is a win. You would rather win ugly than lose cute. I get it. But when you really watch the Eagles in comparison to the Rams yesterday, and which, I mean, the Rams and the Seahawks didn't look good yesterday, but we're going to discuss them later. But you got to think, those are just two juggernaut teams going at it. And it was like good on good. They go together, and you got a phenomenal product for the most part, entertainment-wise. But yesterday, you watched this game, and like, I want to pluck my eyeballs out watching Philadelphia's offense. Jalen Hurts, he just 14 for 28, 135 yards. Yes, the weather was bad yesterday, but Jalen Hurts has just not played good football this year. Saquon, nowhere near what he was last year. Saquon had 83 yards on 26 carries, 3.2 yards a carry. Offensively, Philly does nothing well. They can't pass. They can't run. They're not utilizing Jalen Hurts' legs, and Chris Collinsworth was pointing that out in the broadcast yesterday. Like, early on in the season, you saw Jalen Hurts' legs and, court design runs was part of the game plan. And it seems like there's not a lot of RPOs. There's not a lot of quarterback design runs. It's like Kevin Patullo's offense for Philly is like drop back and pass, and that's really never been Jalen Hurts' strong suit. When Philly was dominant last year, and a couple years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, they were able to run the football. They were able to run pass option. They kept you guessing because of Jalen Hurts' legs. Jalen Hurts is not this drop back type quarterback, and he's going to pick you apart. That's not Jalen Hurts' game. So this Eagles offense is bad. I don't think it's going to get better at any point in the future in the season. And the only thing working in the Eagles' advantage right now is that they're 8-2. Their schedule, for the most part, really isn't horrendous. You got Dallas this week. You're going to Dallas. Now Dallas is coming off a bye. Who knows what that game will look like? Got the Bears on Black Friday. That's at home. You got to play the Chargers. They're not looking that great. They had a horrible loss yesterday. And you got to play the Bills. So, I mean, they are really primed and in a prime position to get the number one seed in the NFC. And that is going to be a huge advantage for Philly because it is hard to win a game in Philadelphia come January. It snowed last year. So that is like the good thing working for Philly right now. But honestly, if you look at this team in totality, when you watched them last night, they look like just a mediocre football team. The defense is good, like really like great actually. But that offense is just so pathetic that it kind of outweighs, well, I wouldn't say outweighs. It weighs the both together to ultimately come into just a mediocre team. But they're winning. They're finding ways to win. That is something that you can always compliment Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and his whole stint as head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. But when you really watch this team, if it really wasn't for Howie Roseman making that big move for Jalen Phillips and the contributions that he's been able to make, what would this team possibly look like? That's an interesting question to ask. But Philly keeps winning, and the Lions, they got to get a whole lot better because they're more than likely going to have to play in these conditions, and Jared Goff's got to play better football.